Now, I know a woman who her family runs a dairy farm in Montgomery County.
Yeah.
I know a gentleman whose family runs a sheep farm in Rensselaer County. And the two of them, although in different counties of New York State and, in different businesses of farming, say it is brutal in 2012 to run a farm, and they're barely hanging on. Is that basically the situation for farming in New York State?
I think that we have many farmers that are facing challenges, there's no question. And I think it goes back to a couple of different things, Joe. That number one, from the smallest farm to the largest farm operation, farms are businesses. People tend to think of farms not in that capacity. They think of farms like, the local operation that people grow their own food, et cetera. And there are farms that do that, and that's a great thing to do. But farms, think about this, 1/20th of 1% of all people in the state that farm and in this country that farm have to feed now billions of people across the world.
Right.
And millions and tens of millions in New York State and hundreds of millions in the country. So to do that, you need to have enough land stay in agricultural production. So what our farmers face is a couple things. Number one, I mentioned before, in this state, farmers are some of the biggest landholders, and property tax is a problem. So we've got high property taxes in this state. That's a tough challenge for farmers. We've got high energy costs. This is the second largest cost in the country for energy. So, and farmers are big users. I mean, you mentioned a dairy operation. That's a huge user of energy. So you've got some of the most expensive energy, some of the worst tax structures. Add to that the fact that if you want to leave your farm to your son or daughter when you pass away, that you've got a large estate tax problem. Because while people think of the estate tax as something that only affects, the Rockefellers of the world, if you have a lot of land and property, it's worth a lot of money. And to try to pass that property on to your kids isn't easy when you have to pay that large of a nut in terms of the estate tax. Then you've got the weather concerns. You don't know when the next Hurricane Lee or Irene's going to come through. You don't know when the next blight's going to come through and infect your crop.
Also earthquakes now.
And earthquakes, yeah, right, that's true. You just don't know. And so with all that, with here, all the certain things you're dealing with seem to be going up. The uncertainties are always out there. It does create a problem. But let me say this. On a positive note, I do think that we've been seeing some progress on that front, Joe. The 2% property tax cap that was passed last year in Albany, that Farm Bureau was supportive of, it's a great first step because it does at least give you some surety if you're going to be able to stay essentially within a 2% cap about where property taxes are going. Now we're working very hard in Albany to make sure we see mandate relief because people say, well, why do farmers care about mandate relief for school districts or municipalities? It's because we paid last year as farmers in this state, $250 odd million in property tax, and it keeps going up. So if we have a 2% property tax cap and we can get meaningful mandate relief, and that means really taking a look at programs like Medicaid, looking at the Wicks law, the Triborough amendment that affects school districts, and reforming them so that we can keep this land in agricultural production. Because I always tell people this too, for the environment, it's much better if we keep land in agricultural production, because if it's in agricultural production, it's not going to be used to build large developments. You're not going to see a factory put on that territory, and you're not going to see it lay fallow. It's going to be used for good quality, healthy, sustainable agriculture, which is what we want to see in this state. So I think if you look at it all around, it's tough out there. I think we're turning the corner somewhat in the state. We've seen, I think, some reforms that are making it better, and we've got to do more.
Well, the person who owns the sheep farm, that's a friend of mine, they're able to sell their product down in New York City, and they have a good reputation down there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's very tough. But they look around, and they pointed out to me, and it still looked very rural to me out there, but they pointed out the number of farms that have vanished since they began operating their farm about 30 years ago, that people have just given up and sold it to real estate developers because they just can't fight it anymore.
Well, a couple of things. I mean, you mentioned your initial point about being able to get your product in New York City, for example. And, when you have somebody who, on the sheep end, you're producing a number of products that are marketable in the city. One of the things we work really hard on, it's one of the issues we're focused on in Albany in our policy development, is we're looking at how do we get greater access to the city markets. You've got great green markets in the city. You've got a tremendous green market terminal at Hunts Point in New York City. These are things that are real assets for our farmers. And what we've got to be able to do, however, is make sure that when people go to shop at these farmers markets, they can afford and access all these products.
Well, You had mentioned green market terminals on the phone to me yesterday. I had never heard of them. Would you explain to our viewers exactly what they are?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it this way, if you're an upstate viewer and you're a person and you're thinking about, okay, what does a green market look like? Think about your local farmers market. Everyone has that, or most people have access to those. And there's been an explosion in farmers markets. So these are just larger versions, essentially, of a farmer's market or a farm stand, where multiple purveyors come in. They're selling locally grown products that they might be bringing in from the Hudson Valley or Western New York or the Southern Tier into New York City. And again, the growing demand of people saying, hey, we want those products. But we also have is challenges with people that may be lower income, that maybe can't afford these products as readily as they can afford a less healthy product, for example. Or older people who can't maybe get to the market. So one of the things I think has been going on lately, which is really helpful, is we've been advocating for, in Washington, D.C., the expansion of the use of electronic debiting machines in green markets in the city. Now, there are some. But we're trying to say, hey, there should be some subsidy for more, because if there is, people that are on public assistance programs, for example, who, I think evidence would show it's a good idea for them to access, healthy, locally grown food, could do it more readily. And we'd be spending it to support our own local economy, not, some company that could be really operating out of state. So that's one thing. The second thing is we're very supportive, of course, of the idea that we do have programs for vouchers for people who are elderly and in poverty, that they can go to green markets and buy locally grown products in the city. That's very helpful. We need to expand that program and look at that again. And I mentioned the school lunch program. There's been some attacks recently where people say, well, we should be taking, this happened in Albany, we should be taking dairy out of school lunch programs. We shouldn't be serving people cheese. A ridiculous suggestion. We're about balanced diets and giving people locally produced healthy food. And cheese, listen, I love cheese, Joe. I just got to tell you, I think I'm part mouse. It's tremendous. And at the end of the day,
okay, Mickey.
Yeah, right. Well, I really do. I mean, regardless of being a Farm Bureau person, I really love cheese. And I think as a part of a balanced diet, it's an important piece. USDA recommends it as part of a balanced diet because of its protein content, its calcium content. So it's interesting that there's people out there saying, well, let's get rid of cheese out of a school lunch, but I can go down to a vending machine and buy who knows what at the same school. So I think it's an important thing that we take a look at, finding every way we can to support, our local agricultural markets.
You mentioned programs for the senior citizens and the economically disadvantaged. People that would need those programs or want to take advantage of them, who do they go to?
It's a great question. Certainly, there's our representatives, your congressional representatives, and our senators have a lot of information in their offices about these programs. The USDA on its website has a ton of information you can access, and it's got a pretty reasonable searchable database that if you put in green markets or if you put in a EBT program, you can find some of these programs. So I think, and also some of your local governments as well. So the information's there. Of course, you do have to look for it, and that's one of the reasons I love going out and doing shows like this, Joe. And I love seeing you, but also to spread the word that these great programs exist.
Now, we had Albany County Executive Dan McCoy in here a little while ago, and he's very distressed that the federal government has announced that they're going to be closing USDA field offices around New York State. They've been described like a community gathering place for farmers, like the post office, and also their federal government's closing post offices, which, like the one in the North Albany Manans line, was making a profit. And they still have to pay the rent on it, even though it's closed. And the federal government, getting back to these USDA farm offices, they seem to be making decisions that are not in the best interest of residents of New York State, and in this particular situation, in the interest of our farmers. And he's hoping to keep that office open. Well,
the county, listen, and I think we've heard, and if you've seen, there's been meetings that have been held in all these counties: Saratoga County, Albany County, several other counties across the state, including Yates County and Broome County. And you've seen a lot of local farmers come and speak out about these issues. A couple of things I'd point out on this I think are important. First of all, on the Farm Bureau side, Farm Bureau, while obviously we have a statewide Farm Bureau organization, which I represent, we have also, Farm Bureau organizations in every county, and that's really where our policy-making process starts. It's kind of a federalist system like the government has, and we have a national organization as well. So, we're seeing our local Farm Bureaus in Saratoga County and Albany County and other counties getting very active on this issue, and we encourage that activism. Our position is is nuanced in this way. the Farm Bill in 2008, which was the last farm bill that we had at the federal level, dictated a process within the many, many pages of that bill for how you would look at closing a USDA office. And some of those things were things like they'd have to have less than 2 employees on staff, that there has to be another farm service agency office within a certain distance. Now, probably a little known fact, again, that a lot of people didn't know, so that process is sort of out there. We really think, moving forward, we have to tweak that process. We've got to look at a lot of other factors. If you think about our local farmers in Albany County or in Saratoga
Which I
County,
guess there are over 500 farms in Albany County.
absolutely true, and people again, I think, would be surprised to hear that. And there's even more farms in Saratoga County, by the way. I believe over 800. There's even more there. And if you look at it from that perspective, you say, okay, in the case of Saratoga County, they've got their FSA office in the same location as a Cornell Cooperative Extension office, which is something farmers use all the time, the Soil and Water District office, which the farmers use all the time. So those are all like a one-stop shop. I go in, I can leave my farm for a couple hours, I can go see all these agencies in the same building. Now we're asking farmers, essentially, to traipse across several counties, to travel and spend whole days, hundreds of miles in some cases, to go to these various offices to file reports, or a lot of times, Joe, it's something as simple as getting information.
Right.
Do I qualify for this program? Do I not qualify for it? Can you advise me how to best fill out this paperwork? And those are important questions to have answered as a farmer, so you make sure that you are doing everything you're supposed to do. And I think that that's the issue. We think that looking forward in the Farm Bill that could happen this year in 2012, that we have to address this question and have a much more comprehensive approach to how we look at USDA offices and their function and closures. And I'll tell you one other thing too, and take a look at ways that on the paperwork side of it, that we can file our paperwork electronically and paperlessly. That's something that we also are not really quite there yet with USDA that has to get better.